On the morning of September 16th, 1992, George Soros woke up with 10 billion pounds borrowed in his name. He had spent months quietly building a bet that the British government was wrong about its own currency. Not slightly wrong, fundamentally, catastrophically wrong. And now, with the markets about to open, he was about to find out if he was right. If he was correct, he would make more money in a single day than most people see in a lifetime. If he was wrong, if the British government held its position and the pound didn't fall, the losses would be so large they could destroy his fund entirely. To understand why Soros was willing to risk everything on this single bet, you have to understand where he came from. Soros was born in Budapest, Hungary, in 1930. When he was 13, the Nazis occupied his country. His father, a lawyer named Tivadar, saved the family by obtaining false identity papers and going into hiding. Over 500,000 Hungarian Jews were murdered during that occupation. The Soros family survived because Tivadar understood one thing that most people refused to accept. The system they were living inside had already broken down, even though it still looked normal from the outside. That lesson never left George Soros. He carried it to London, to the London School of Economics, and eventually to Wall Street. And in 1992, he became convinced it applied directly to the British pound. The question was simple. Could one man with one idea about how the world works actually break the Bank of England? The target was a system called the Exchange Rate Mechanism, or ERM. It was an agreement between the European countries to lock their currencies to the German mark at a fixed rate. The idea was that by keeping the rate fixed, the governments could keep their economies stable and predictable. Soros found this idea almost comically arrogant. His entire life had taught him that human systems don't stay stable just because powerful people insist they should. They break. And the more rigidly a system is held in place, the more violently it collapses when the reality finally catches up. He had spent years developing this idea into a formal theory he called reflexivity. It simply means that people's beliefs about a market affect the market itself. And since people are always wrong about something, markets always contain the seeds of their own correction. The ERM was a textbook example. The UK had joined it in 1990, locking the pound to the German mark at a rate that looked reasonable at the time. But by 1992, the British and German economies had moved in completely opposite directions, and the peg was forcing Britain to follow Germany's rules, even as the two countries needed completely different medicine. To keep the pound at its fixed rate, Britain had to match Germany's high interest rates. But Britain was in a recession. High interest rates were strangling British businesses and homeowners already struggling to pay their mortgages. The government was following a policy that was actively hurting its own people just to maintain a number on a chart. Soros watched this contradiction grow wider and wider through the summer of 1992. He started building his position quietly, borrowing pounds and selling them into the market. The pound would eventually fall to a level where it had to be devalued. Then on the evening of September 15th, the head of the German central bank gave an interview hinting that European currencies might soon need to be adjusted. It wasn't a dramatic announcement, it was a single offhand comment from one official. But for Soros, it was the last piece of confirmation he needed. That night, he told his team to go for the jugular. On the morning of September 16th, Soros began dumping borrowed pounds into the market faster than the Bank of England could buy them back. The bank raised interest rates once, then twice, from 10 to 12%, then to 15% in a single day, in a desperate attempt to make holding pounds attractive enough to stop the selling. Didn't work. Other hedge funds, watching Soros move, joined the attack. The selling became a flood. By the afternoon, the Bank of England had spent billions from its reserves, and the pound was still falling. At 7:30 p.m., Chancellor Norman Lamont stepped in front of a television camera outside the Treasury. He announced that Britain was withdrawing from the ERM, and the pound would be allowed to find its own level. Soros had won. He walked away with over $1 billion in profit from a single day's trading. The newspapers called it Black Wednesday, a national humiliation. But here's what almost nobody saw coming. Once the pound was freed from its fixed rate, The British government could finally set interest rates that actually matched what the British economy needed. Rates came down, mortgages became affordable, businesses could borrow again. The economy that collapsed on Black Wednesday grew steadily for the next 15 years, so steadily that economists quietly began calling it White Wednesday instead. The political damage, however, was permanent. Within days of the crash, the Conservative Party's poll ratings dropped by 14 points. The party that had spent 18 years telling Britain it could be trusted with money had been exposed in a single afternoon. That reputation never came back. Over the next 5 years, that loss of trust acted like a slow leak. The Conservatives limped to the 1997 election and lost in a landslide to Tony Blair's Labour Party, ending 18 years of Conservative rule. And Soros, the man the British press called a financial predator, used his billion-pound profit to fund something his father, Tivadar, had taught him to believe in during those years of hiding in Budapest. He poured the money into the Open Society Foundations, organizations fighting for democracy, free press, and civil rights in more than 120 countries. The man who broke the Bank of England became one of the largest funders of democratic institutions in the world. Which raises the question Soros has spent his whole life answering. What do you do when you can see that the system that everyone else trusts has already broken down? Put some more reading down below. Check out those resources. Stay tuned for the next video. We'll catch you there.